So Heather, because of the damage sexual addiction causes the partner, a relationship being two people, how is it possible to rewire our brains sexually if sex is off the table? Many couples in recovery are going through a time of abstinence, or maybe they're even separated, or a spouse is saying, I don't trust you, we're not going to be intimate. And some people may think, well, if I'm not having sex, how can I rewire my brain? What would you say to someone who's in that place?
So I think that it's reasonable to think that if somebody has conditioned their brain to respond a certain way every single time they do something, that they need to have a time where they disrupt that pattern. And a lot of couples will go through like a 90-day, at least 90 days of an abstinence period where sex is off the table, because it's during that time that if a person is, seriously wanting to recover from this, that they're going to work through that process of retraining their brain to look for something different than the solution that they've found in sexually acting out. And so a lot of times for couples, they will take sex off the table for at least 90 days. And I think that this is really helpful because we're not trying to reset the brain back to what it used to be. We're basically trying to weaken some of those neural pathways so that we can put new behaviors, new patterns in place that are going to create a stronger neural pathway. And really, that's kind of, I think, the beginning to rewiring our brain is when we can look at it almost objectively to say, I've been doing this over and over and over and over and over, and it's hurting me and it's hurting my spouse. And so I need to totally disrupt that pattern so that I can put something new, something healthy in its place. And that's really what this process looks like. So, and a lot of times it's at least 90 days.
Yeah. I think that creates opportunity, as you were talking about, where you're learning new habits or you're learning new responses. And I think some of that can be like non-sexual touch. I know I've had some conversations with our clinicians on staff that like even saying like, this is not going to lead to sex, but can I hug you right now? Things like that, where you can practically rewire your brain that not every touch means that we're going to have sex or means that I'm going to initiate it or my spouse is going to initiate it. And I think too, when sex is off the table, and you're not acting out, you become much more aware of where you're at emotionally. You become aware of your triggers. You become aware of the things that impact you, good or bad, during a day. And you have an opportunity then to share those emotions and grow in intimacy in these other areas where it's not just physical intimacy that we're after. It's I'm getting to know my spouse at a deeper level. My spouse is getting to know me at a deeper level. And I think that when sex is off the table, it kind of is that like pressure valve that gets released where this is not going to lead to anything. And I can just engage in these other areas, which I think in the long run is going to impact their sex life when they do re-engage, but they're going to get to know each other in all these other areas. And I think that's what's cool about all of this is that even doing that stuff, even though it doesn't lead to sex, that is going to rewire your brain when it comes to your perspective on sex.
Yeah. And I think I want to point out that if someone is asking this question, well, how do I rewire my brain sexually if we're not having sex? They're asking it, I think, from a faulty assumption. And the faulty assumption might be that the way to rewire my brain sexually is only through having healthy sex.
Yeah, that's good.
It's kind of like the food addict who says, well, the only way to get healthier is to replace bad food with good food. But if I'm still eating 5,000 calories a day at all times through the day and just, anytime I feel like food, I go make a strawberry smoothie, I'm still going to be in a very unhealthy place. Maybe a little better than all the bad food, but not really getting healthy. Right. And so I think there's a fundamental shift that says what healthy sex will be the outcome of the work that I'm doing. As I retrain my brain, as I renew my mind, as I identify the lies that I listen to, the false expectations I have, where they came from. I know for a lot of guys, the way I've attached my sense of masculinity or respect to, am I getting as much sex as I think I need or deserve? And as I unlearn a lot of those healthy patterns, then when I do enter into sex with my spouse, whether that's quickly in recovery or takes a long time in recovery, the healthy sex becomes the outcome of the work, not the way that we get healthy. Now, I think they certainly can work together, that if you're moving towards healthier patterns of sex in your marriage, that can reinforce some of what you're learning. But it would just be a mistake if we think, well, until we're having sex, I can't unlearn these bad patterns. Like, no, a lot of that happens in the work you do with group, with a counselor if you're doing that, with reframing the way you think about this whole area. So just be aware if you're asking this question, maybe you need to question your own assumptions when you ask that question.
Totally.
Well, and because it goes back to that, we tell people this all the time, is that sexual addiction is not about sex.
Yeah.
The same way that a food addiction or an eating disorder is not about food. It's about something else that's driving the behaviors. And that's really, I think, the most pressing part of recovery is determining or discovering what is that need that you're trying to meet in this way that's hurting you.
Yeah, it's like the guy that says, well, I just have such a high sex drive. Well, I'm just so horny. That'd be like someone saying, well, I just have an unusual desire for Oreos. I can't help it. Like, that's just the way I am.
It's Heather, by the way.
I love Oreos.
Perfect illustration.
But we say that like, well, that's just a given. I can't help it, versus looking at, oh, maybe my choices over the last years or decades have created these drives, needs, and feelings. And I need to question what I'm feeling, not question what I'm doing to get that feeling met.
Yeah.